Hey guys, welcome to Think is Infinite podcast with Joe
and John.
And we're here, we're back, and
after about 2 weeks off, Joe? Maybe?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to do this from now on, like uploading every 2 weeks instead. And the reason why is because what I want to do, at least going forward, is have topics in advance. So, and then, really, research into them. You know what I mean? Like, going into depth about the topics. Mm-hmm. I'd want to do that in the future. Not this week,
great
because I
idea.
feel like this week we're kind of rushing it. But, next week and maybe in the weeks after that, probably 2 weeks, we'll kind of start to have more depth into the topics that we talk about and research them more heavily.
Yeah, it's always good to have a lot of information, and Joe is filled with information, and we'll definitely, I think it'll improve the quality of our segments, right?
Exactly, because I feel like we kind of go a bit off of our assumptions a little, so I think improving the research will kind of help with that.
I agree.
So
before we get started, Joe, I just want to say a little something. Over the past, between the last podcast and this one, we lost a listener. My godfather had passed away, and he was one of them that really enjoyed our podcast. And he was a very special man in my life. He was someone who was a big part of my life growing up. And it was very sad that I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. But
what happened to him?
He had fallen backwards, and then he suffered a brain injury. So it was a very difficult 2 weeks. But he enjoyed our podcast, and if anyone sees on the Apple reviews where it says Uncle Franny really enjoyed it. Yeah. That's Uncle Franny. He was the one who passed away. So this was a little moment I wanted to take out of this as the first segment of our podcast and say that he was very important to me, and we hope that Aunt Carol listens to it and enjoys the podcast moving forward.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sorry, but Joe, and we wanted to talk about some of the things that he enjoyed. He enjoyed our podcast, so we're going to continue on, and we're going to enjoy ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And in his honor, he was always a very funny guy. So we'll always try to be funny and light and enjoying ourselves in this podcast. And one of the things that's happened since the last time
recently
we recorded was
Elon Musk going crazy right now.
I would say, I guess you could call it whatever you want to call it, but he actually went out and bought Twitter, he's in the process of buying.
I think.
Buying
yeah,
Twitter.
I think, yeah.
Now, do you know the backstory about what he did?
I do actually know. He went to Twitter, right? And he said, okay, if you're not going to improve your policies, I'll buy your company. Mm-hmm. And then Twitter actually tried to prevent this by using what they call a poison pill, which is when they try to make the shares, I guess, less, so they kind of buy more of the shares so that, one person can't own more shares. But that didn't really work, so he ended up kind of succeeding in his bid. He actually, I think he's paying $44 billion, I think, for Twitter. And I think that I'm kind of skeptical. I think that no matter which billionaire owns a company, I feel like that company won't really change much. Unless someone that actually cares or owns something. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's really going to change much when it comes to Twitter's policies and rules. I don't know.
Well, what's very interesting? Elon Musk, obviously, for anyone, he's the richest man in the world right now, and he's a fairly young guy. I mean, he's probably a few years younger than me, so he's probably maybe 40. That's what he looks to me, at least. I don't know. I'm really not sure his age, but he was someone that was active on Twitter. And he didn't follow many people. I don't know if we talked about this in the last podcast.
Yeah,
Did we talk about this?
I think so, yeah.
Well,
no, I don't. We didn't actually talk about it, but I remember hearing that. You know what I mean?
So he didn't follow many people, and one of the satire Twitter handles got banned for a joke, and he got very upset. And so he actually reached out to that. He only followed 100 pages, and he reached out to them and said, "Did you guys really get banned for that?" And they said, "Yes, we did." And this was about 2 or 3 months ago, maybe, and he And I looked back, because I followed him once I knew that he was up to something. So I started looking at his old tweets, and he tweeted out, he goes, "This is a very important poll." And he put one of those polls on Twitter. And it said something along the lines of, "Do you think Twitter is a good free speech platform?" And he goes, "Your answer is very important." And that was a hint that he was up to something, because 70% of the people that were on Twitter said, no, it's not a good free speech platform. And then he went out and started to work towards buying a company. And now there's some funny things out there. Someone asked him, "Could you buy McDonald's and fix the ice cream machines?"
Okay, that's actually a good meme. But also, I want to say something about social media in general. Twitter, remember we talked about like social media censorship? I realized that I was kind of wrong. It's true that maybe there is a bias with these moderators, but I feel like the majority of the problems with social media comes from the fact that you don't actually know if they have any bias at all, because guess what? You can't communicate with any of them. There is no communication with the moderators, even within their companies. Like, I heard of a case of a YouTuber. He actually has over like 10 million subs, and he has like a company that has direct ties with YouTube, and he got a strike on his channel, and even like heads of like entire like departments in the company couldn't reach the moderators.
I have heard that. I've heard that. And what happens is if they give you a strike or ban you or something like that, and especially if you're on a YouTube where you're monetized, right?
Yeah.
And so if you get banned, it could take you 2 or 3 days to lift that ban, and you lost what you could have made money on that particular show.
Not only that, but it's like YouTube also, I feel like there's also a problem with other platforms, because other platforms seem to follow the same kind of idea where like, there's no communication with the policy teams. There's no actual way you can appeal it, okay? When you appeal a ban, there's no way that there's no reason given for your ban either. It's very vague stuff that they give. And I feel like that's a major problem.
Here's the thing: unless someone is threatening another human, or really vile photos or videos, you shouldn't be banned off this thing for having a thought. And that's the one thing that I'm hoping Elon Musk changes about Twitter. And then maybe, here's the thing: Twitter, in the grand scheme of things, Joe, Twitter is not that big of a deal. I think only 10 to 15% of people that even have a Twitter account are active on Twitter.
That's true.
So it's not that it's the most important thing, but it is a step in the right direction. I am a strong believer in free speech. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I want to give you the power to say it. Now, as long as you're not saying anything violent, as long as you're not threatening someone, that it should be an open forum for being able to share your views and not be banned for having a different view than someone else has. And I think Twitter overstepped their boundaries over the past few years. And I think also the Facebooks and the YouTubes also overstepped their boundaries, and now they're starting to pay the price. People are PO'd about it. They're angry. They don't like to have one side being shut down.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's that, because I don't even know if it's one side being shut down, because oddly enough, there's been a lot of YouTubers who don't even express any political opinions that are also getting demonetized. Like history channels, for example, history channels. When they talk about World War II, almost every single time their videos get demonetized. They're not getting political. It's just if they talk about World War II and they put any Nazis in there, they get banned. Any mention of Nazism is banned from being talked about.
Here's why I think it should be talked about. Here's why I think it should be talked about, Joe. And I'm going to give you a different opinion on this one that you may not have thought of, okay? I want the world to understand what the Nazis were all
Exactly!
about.
You want them to understand why they're bad. And by them banning it, actually, I was just going to say that, it makes it more likely that these kind of things will happen, because you're basically banning people for talking about a topic or an uncomfortable historical topic. The problem with these platforms is they want their platforms to be family friendly in a way. They want to maintain their brand. It's not about what political views you have. It's about if those views align with their brand or not. If they don't, they'll ban you. Because here's the thing. The media is kind of pressuring the platforms in a way.
Well,
if you think about it, look at a lot of the things that they did, right? COVID misinformation policy, which is a very controversial topic. I'm not going to get too deep into that. But remember when they did that?
Mm-hmm.
Who told them to do that? Who are the main people that were doing that?
Interesting question.
Answer that question for me.
I think the government and the media.
Yep, and
Big Pharma.
That
the
too.
Pfizers of the world.
That's true as well. And remember when they had a whole thing where they banned when they were banning they were having like this whole adpocalypse where YouTubers couldn't make money off of ads. When they did that, it was also pressure from the media that was causing to ban all non-kid friendly content. And I remember other cases where there have been people who have like said controversial things, right-wing or left-wing YouTubers who've said controversial things getting banned because the media talks about it, and then they are pressuring these platforms to ban them, basically spinning it saying like, oh, look at all these platforms, they're not banning hateful stuff off their site, they're allowing hateful opinions to thrive. And it's causing a lot of big problems because like now things like violence in video games is not allowed to be shown, or even like clips like that aren't allowed to be shown because parents complain to the media. The media is causing a lot of these problems. Not all of them, but a lot of them are being caused by that.
Well, here's the thing. I think that it's so important moving forward. I think COVID definitely should teach a lesson to people. How dare all these platforms ban someone for saying a certain medicine that, you know what, I'm going to say it. Hydroxychloroquine. Let's see if YouTube takes down this video. I'm actually going to say that word on this podcast because we do, Joe, not only do we have this on the Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, but we also post our audio to YouTube. And I'm curious to see if they actually shut it down, because how dare they take medicines that have been around for years and people that may be saying it worked for them off the platform. At the time, no one understood COVID at the time, and the CDC didn't have all the right answers. And how dare they take things off the air and stop you from mentioning even a medicine, yet you can talk about other things and they don't ban it.
Also, the problem is that COVID isn't even like, it's different from other misinformation. Like, misinformation is a whole dumpster fire in and of itself.
Yeah.
But like the COVID doesn't even match that because there's not a scientific consensus.
Exactly.
Like it was so new at the time, people didn't know anything. So you could literally have said anything and it could have been true, it could have been completely false. You had no idea. Science had no idea.
Well,
the CDC had no idea. No one had any idea.
Get this. We were told by the CDC, the same area that was the same Center for Disease Control that was pressuring the YouTubes, the Twitters, and the Facebooks from how dare you, do not say the words of certain medicines. They were the same ones that said the shot was going to stop you from getting COVID. They were the same ones, and if you saw in the very beginning of the pandemic, when the vaccinations came out, how they said it was 90% effective from even getting COVID, and if you got it, you had the antibodies to fight it. And they were wrong. 3 months later, people started getting it with the shots, and yes, the shots. And I'm not poo-pooing the shot. The shot actually, I think, helps some people, and it puts the medicine in them before they even get it. But my point is, even they were getting stuff wrong. They got stuff wrong from the very beginning when they wanted to. Remember, they were saying, you don't need masks, and then they said everyone has to wear a mask. I mean, they were getting things wrong the whole time.
Yeah, because everything was constantly changing. The knowledge was not there. Nothing was set in stone. It's not like tuberculosis, where we've had these diseases for years. We know about them. We know almost everything about it. COVID was very new. Yeah. So no one knew anything about if this shot would work, if, anything would work. We didn't know.
And doesn't it make you a little suspicious that... I'm sorry, Joe, for just talking over you, but doesn't it make you a little suspicious that there was this shot that Pfizer was getting money from the federal government and all these governments to administer these shots, when there was a pill that was only a few dollars that may be able to help. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not a doctor. I don't know if it was going to help all these people, but all I know is they were pushing the vaccination so hard. And you know what? The sad thing is the world is run by people and money. And I personally think that the vaccination was a halfway decent thing, a good thing for some people. But it was pushed so hard, and it's still being pushed. Every time you turn on the radio, they're saying vaccinations are safe. Yeah, I get it. We've all gotten it.
Well, actually, the thing is, when there were actually some doctors, and they said that the best way to prevent COVID is not even through this. It's simple things like, making ventilation systems better. They said we should invest more in antiviral medications to stop it.
Yes.
They're now saying that. They're saying, we should improve ventilation so that people can't get sick in the first place, so that the viruses are kind of get out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you know what? And see, here's the thing. The science of a new virus is always changing and always adjusting, and I think it's so important that the open and this is I'm circling back to this big thing of open forum of ideas. If you learn something, you should be able to share it with the world and let people believe it or not. And the whole term, like you said, it's called a dumpster fire. The term misinformation. I don't even understand what misinformation could be. Anything, Joe. I can say, you know what, Joe? Your pants, you're saying your pants are black. That's misinformation. And then, you'll be like, yeah, no, they are black. And I know that's misinformation because you have 3 white stripes down the side. So you're giving out misinformation by saying yours are black. Yeah. You could play around with that term as long as you want. Joe is wearing a blue hoodie. No, he's not wearing a blue hoodie. That's misinformation because it's blue and gray. You're like, anyone could play around with that and then call you a liar.
Yeah, and also another big thing, they never explain it. There is no depth in any of their terms. Read the terms of the websites. Go and read them. I actually want you to do that. If you read them, it's the most vague stuff ever. They literally give you some examples, right? Mm-hmm. They don't give you any in-depth explanations. Like, here's what's allowed, here's what's not allowed. Here
it's basically what we want to be allowed.
Yeah, it's vague. And basically, they give all the power to these people who you can't even talk to. You, basically heads of divisions at these companies can't talk to. There's, no way for even the people within these companies to talk to these people. To talk to the policy heads. They literally had, the head of, one of these divisions at YouTube, with the guy on YouTube when he got falsely banned, they sent an email out, and the reply he got was literally just, it's a violation of the terms of service, here's our Google help page. That was the email that a head of one of these departments at YouTube got.
So do you think we're going to get that email after you post this video? This audio? We don't have many, the podcast itself is doing pretty well. I mean, we have a good following. The YouTube channel that hasn't gotten much traction at all. So if we get banned, it's really not going to be a big deal because we really didn't get that many audio listeners from YouTube.
That's true, but most people don't really do that on YouTube. They watch videos, not really audio.
Right. But you know what? I'm glad you put it on that platform. This is a good experiment, and you know what? We'll follow up in the next episode that we do and see if we got banned for talking about and using the word Nazi. Ooh, the word Nazi is so horrible. You know what? It's important to understand what Nazis did, because then you won't make a equivalent in today's society. You can't call, Republicans shouldn't call Democrats Nazis, and Democrats shouldn't call Republicans Nazis, because you know what? Nazis were really bad. We're the killers. Yeah. They wiped out millions of people.
Yeah, they wiped out 10 million.
Right. So that's real. And you know what? The moment you forget that evil really truly exists and you start calling everyone evil, I mean, it's been a play for years. You're a Nazi. You're a Nazi. You know what? Look at the real Nazis. They were horrible people. They were horrible humans. They were people that, thankfully, most of them were wiped off the planet.
Yeah. Or they just got a hold of themselves and snapped out of their delusions. But it's kind of it's something that we just kind of wanted to talk about. Oh my god, our segment's 20 minutes long.
Our
We really
longest segment ever.
Anyways, that was a little bit of noise.
Well, you
but
know what?
anyways.
We want you guys to comment on our Facebook page what you think about censorship, and I know we kind of rambled in a ton of different directions here,
Right.
but you know what? This was a good forum, is a good opportunity and a good opportunity for us to be a little bit passionate about this.
And see ya on our next segment. Hey, welcome to the Would You Rather time. It's time for Would You Rather. Yeah.
And we had just a passionate discussion, and this
just
time
did.
it's get a little light and a little have some fun, okay? So
Okay, we're having
now
some
we're doing
fun
a
now.
Would You Rather with the two of us. It's just Joe and John right now. So what I'm going to do, and if anyone's not familiar, first-time listener, what we do is I pose a question to Joe, and I'm going to try to guess what he would rather do. We'll do 3 of them, and I'll see if I can get 2 out of 3 right,
Okay.
and we'll see how we go from there, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to ask Joe a question of a Would You Rather, and let's see if I can guess what he would rather do.
Okay.
All right. Would you rather go backstage with your favorite band
Okay.
or be an extra on your favorite TV show?
Oh.
So think about that for a second. So, Joe, do you have a favorite band or favorite singer?
Probably Demi Lovato. I kind of like her.
All right, so Demi Lovato, you get to meet her backstage. Okay, that's
cool.
Pretty
Pretty
cool.
cool.
Or what's your favorite show?
Stranger Things. I love that show.
All right, so would you rather be an extra in Stranger Things, like if you're like just say they have a scene at a diner and you're sitting at the diner eating and you could see yourself in the background. So think about those 2 scenarios, and I'm going to try to guess.
I'm thinking.
Tell me when you got it. When you know which one you'd rather.
I got it.
All right. I'm going to guess Joe would rather go backstage with Demi Lovato.
Actually, you're wrong. I'd rather be an extra.
Oh, you want to be an extra in a TV show? That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Now, why would you rather be an extra?
I don't know, because I just kind of I like the idea of not only watching professional broadcast, but also I feel like if I'm an extra, that propels acting further.
I
so.
should have thought of that. Good point. And it makes sense now.
Mhm.
All right, second one. So I'm 0 for 1. All right. Second one, here it is. Would you rather never eat your favorite food for the rest of your life or only eat your favorite food? So, what's your favorite food?
Chicken fingers.
All right, so you would have to either never eat it again for the rest of your life, or that's your only food you get to eat. Now, think about that for a moment. And I'm going to try to guess your answer. Tell me when you locked it in.
I've locked it in.
Okay. I'm going to say you would rather not eat your favorite food the rest of your life.
Oddly enough, you're right.
Yes, because I know you've actually have a pretty good. Like, you would eat other things. You'd be like, all right, I'll just have peanut butter and jelly, or I'll have pizza or something else, or French fries.
Yep.
All right, so I'm 1 for 1.
I feel like it'd be kind of like you
One
have
out
to
of
eat
one.
only one food the rest of your life. That's kind of bad, you know what I mean? So.
All right, now this is a funny one, and this is going to make you think, okay? Whew. Would you rather find a $100 bill in a public toilet or a $20 bill in your pocket? So, you go to the public toilet, there's a $100 bill sitting in there, okay? Now you have to do is get it. Or a $20 bill in your pocket.
I already have my vote.
All right, I'm going to guess a $100 bill in the toilet.
No.
Oh! Now why?
Put my hand in the toilet bowl. Okay, I don't care what's in there. Could be
Good.
a gold nugget. I'm not putting my hand in the toilet bowl. Toilet bowl.
Well, I'm glad you said that because it
Especially
made me a little nervous. I thought you'd be like, I'll just grab it and I'll wash my hands.
No, I'm not grabbing stuff from especially from a public toilet bowl. Those things are filthy.
I know. That would be a really tough one. All right, so I got what? 1 out of the 3, right?
1, 2. That's your score.
Well, I did okay. I tried.
Okay.
Well, that's the end of our short little
Would
Would
You
You
Rather
Rather segment, and we'll see you on to the next one.
Hey, here is my segment. The long-awaited podcast is releasing tonight as I record this. It is actually around 8:20 on Friday, and we're going to actually be discussing something that's something I've been wanting to discuss for quite some time, and a book that I really adore. I suggest that any of you read it, for any of you who haven't read it. And it's actually the book, one of the most famous books in history, 1984. Now, George Orwell, the person who wrote this, actually has a very interesting history behind him. He actually served in the Spanish Civil War, and after he observed the horrors of the war, and he observed how totalitarian leaders often suppress freedom of speech and suppress dissent to fit their needs and motives. He was a socialist, but he did not like the communism that Stalin had, nor did he want communism in its full form. He kind of believed that, people should be given opportunities, stuff like that. His political beliefs aren't that important, but what is that he didn't like totalitarian powers, nor did he like neither the communist nor fascist dictators of the age. So he began to write books, and one of the most famous books that he ever wrote was 1984, which... if you don't know, it portrays basically a very dystopian future with a big brother, a person at the helm, and he kind of makes all the decisions, and everyone has to obey him. And everywhere at all times, there is always something spying on you. And it's basically called a telescreen. It's how the government watches you. And Winston has to try to fight back against them. And he basically writes Down with Big Brother. And it's kind of a countdown to when the thought police catch him. Thought police are the people in the book that suppress dissent. Basically... what happened, for history, a lore breakdown, was that if you want to avoid spoilers, here is the point that you don't want to watch. But anyways, because we're going to be discussing a bit of spoilers, we already went into a little bit, but not too much. But anyways, so in the book. The United States and the Soviet Union were in the Cold War. That was a real time period. In this alternate world, though, in 1949, World War erupts, basically, between the U.S. and the USSR. And the USSR occupies much of Europe and basically steams its armies even into the Iberian Peninsula. And the remainder of the Western world unifies to make Oceania, basically the United States and the British Empire. They unite to make Oceania and then annex much of Latin America. Meanwhile, the Soviet parts on the occupied territories in Europe unite to form Eurasia. And then China is its own thing for a little while. And then the problem was that due to the outbreak of the war, revolutions broke out in both Oceania and Eurasia, as well as East Asia, or China. So America, Russia, and China are all in revolt, and they have to have they're basically these civil wars in Oceania between capitalism and a new ideology, Ingsoc. And Ingsoc won the Civil War, and they found in its place Oceania. And meanwhile, in Eurasia, neo-Bolshevism took power, and the obliteration of the self took power in East Asia. And in those powers, they're all basically the same state, but they all fight perpetual wars with each other in order to fuel their own propaganda and make their rule more justified. So they all kind of perpetuate their own rule in their own territories. Oceania
is basically was basically a totalitarian state, and in the 50s and the 60s, purges began against anyone who was not completely loyal to Ingsoc. Anyone who believed in republicanism, communism, even fascism, any ideology that conflicted with Ingsoc were all executed. And Ingsoc cemented control over over society. And by the time of 1984, the three social classes, the inner party, which was the luxurious branch, the ones at the top of the government, the outer party, and the proles. The proles were uneducated, so the government didn't really care about the proles. And the inner party got luxurious goods, so the outer party, in reality, although being was supposedly near the top of society, in reality, they were really at the bottom because they didn't experience any of the freedom that the proles did, nor did they ever experience the luxurious lifestyle that the inner party had. So the outer party was really the worst hit, and 4 ministries were kind of created. The Ministry of Truth, handling news, basically meaning propaganda. The Ministry of Love, which prosecuted any dissent, the Ministry of Peace, which created war, and Ministry of Plenty, which basically dealt with rationing. And that was basically the environment that Winston was born into. And basically he tries to start a revolt along with his girlfriend, and I'm not going to spoil the ending, but that's kind of the whole idea of the book. He tries to revolt against this totalitarian system that's always watching him at every move, and everyone has to basically obey Big Brother in the party, and no one can talk bad about it in fear of people getting disappeared. The thought police would literally remove you from history, and it would be a crime to mention your existence, and children basically report their parents because they're so brainwashed by the system at place. So if their parents did something wrong, their children would report it to the thought police. Basically a lot like communist China and North Korea. So I felt that this book was kind of relevant, I feel like, in today's world. Not only for the totalitarian states of Russia and China, but also for other things that have been unfortunately transpiring due to the whole boom in technology that has arisen over the years. And it has raised concerns in the past with trying to prevent governments from accessing too much data. What should the government be allowed to access? What shouldn't they? I feel like a huge part of that debate comes from this book. In fact, there have been many people who claim, this is 1984 style stuff. People, I feel like 1984 has kind of warned them, hey, don't trust technology too much. Don't, allow the government to just suppress your speech because you're not going to gain it back once they do. And I feel like it's kind of made people more cautious in that regard, if you know what I mean. I do feel like it has had some, kind of positive impacts, I feel like, because it kind of warns people that these dictatorships are not what you want to be in government. And it's a very good book to read. I totally recommend it. And it's just a little something I wanted to mention. And we'll see you on our next segment.
Hey, welcome to the IRL. As you just heard, the windows are closing, and we're in the
Jeep Cherokee Studios. Yep, and we are just wrapping up our most latest podcast. And Joe, how do you think we can grow everything? I think the best way to grow a podcast is the people that listen is just tell one person, right?
Exactly, and I feel like what we should be doing is making our content better. And
Agreed.
I've noticed that, like I said, when we do longer segments, it's usually very good. So I want to go with that. I want to go longer. You know what I mean? Because we only do 10-minute segments. I feel like it's not enough. I feel like going into a topic and going into depth and actually explaining our points is actually a good thing, A. And B, I feel like it would be a good idea to, like, actually, like, research the points, you know? Like, actually provide evidence to support it. I've been doing a bit better with that on the show. And I feel like you've been doing that too, providing some evidence, providing some proof to show your points. And I feel like we can go better, even, like, providing articles, providing news sources, providing, well, you know, unbiased news sources, good news sources, providing, like, some studies to show our conclusion, even.
And
like,
you know what we could
further.
also do, Joe, and I think that's a great idea, and I do like, I think we should also have topics that we can actually somewhat disagree on, because that's the best way. We can show healthy debate between father and son, and and having a back and forth.
And we've kind of done that today, where I kind of disagreed a bit about the misinformation thing, you know, with, you know, us kind of a little bit disagreeing, and, you know, me saying it's okay, we have to be cautious. Well, you are more like, no, we can't ban it from that. You know what I mean? I feel like that's something that, you know, you could have a debate about, you know?
And I think that's so important in this day and age, is to have healthy debate and go back and forth and not take things personally and just say, you know what, I don't really agree with that, and here's why. And you know what, Joe, I think it's a really good idea, and I know a lot of other podcasters do this, especially the big time ones, is they go out and they put on their homepage the sources where they're getting the information. So, Joe, if you and I talk about an article that we read, you're going to post the article on our Facebook page,
or even in the description of the podcast,
or in the description. Yeah, you can actually put the link in there, so you can say link in the bio, link in the podcast, so you can actually refer back to the references that we're reading and the articles that we're seeing. You know, and I think that's a good way. And Joe, what I'd really like for you to do, and this is kind of the IRL type of portion of it, I want you to put the link on the Facebook page, so people that maybe haven't listened or downloaded, put the link to the podcast in your post when you say, this way people can go, oh, I can just click on this and it'll hyperlink right to...
And I will also be putting the link to sources and references that we use from now on. I feel like that's a good idea.
See, that's how we're growing the podcast, and I think we're 23 or 24 episodes in, and I think we're having some good momentum. I can't wait till we get to our next milestone of downloads. So I think it's everyone out there, give it a listen, give it a share, give it a like, and help us grow it.
Okay.
All right. And as you can hear, IRL, we hear background noise, people working on their houses. Have a great week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And that concludes the podcast. And before we end, I just wanted to state that, well, two things. One, I do apologize for not uploading. I have been a bit busy, but I'm back on track. And also, I wanted to just briefly mention that I'm not going to really be recording intros. I feel like we already really have an intro, you know what I mean? I feel like it's kind of unnecessary to have an introduction to the podcast, so I'm just going to be removing that. And anyways, that's it. Bye.